Wolves are in 7th at 27 and 25. Clippers in the 8th spot at 500. Lakers are 3 games under 500 in the 9. And the Blazers are currently in the 10 spot. We had a trade today as reported by Woj. Clippers are trading Eric Bledsoe, Justice Winslow, Keon Johnson, and future second-round pick to the Trailblazers for Norman Powell, Robert Covington. Sources tell ESPN. Trade deadline next Thursday, February 10th, noon our time. A big move by the Clippers today. Any pressure put on the Lakers, Bill?
I mean, sure. Yeah. Listen, the Lakers have pressure outside of whatever the Clippers are doing. The Lakers, I'm sure, are motivated to improve their roster at the trade deadline, but have so few mechanisms to do so. So the Blazers trading 2 of their better players to the Clippers for basically nothing for cap relief, I'm sure is on the Lakers' radar, but like their stuff is so much more about them and how they can improve than keeping up with the Joneses, so to speak, in the Western Conference. And I just don't know how they're going to do it. When you look at what their tradable assets are, you have an underperforming Talen Horton-Tucker this season at $10 million, and you have Kendrick Nunn at $5.5 million who hasn't played at all, and then you have limited draft assets. You have the 2027 first-round pick, and then you have a bunch of guys on minimums. It's just really hard to cobble that together into an impact player to come back, and that's what the Lakers need. I mean, you can do some rearranging on the margins. You can hope for the Markieff Morrises of the world on the buyout market, and obviously made a huge impact a couple of years ago. But in terms of really reshaping this team, and I think that things are off the rails enough that you can make an argument that a dramatic reshaping would be in order if you could do it. They just can't.
Yeah, I think it would be different if the Clippers were healthy also with Kawhi and PG, and we were looking at them as potentially a contender in the West, and then you're kind of in an arms race situation where you're trying to catch up.
And these teams are in 8th and 9th.
8th and 9th. So I don't think in terms of them versus the Clippers, they're kind of in an arms race there. But I do think for the Lakers, it is important to try to upgrade. And I think you went all in. When you did the Russell Westbrook trade, you went all in on the next 2 seasons. And you need to do everything you can to maximize your championship window over the next 2 seasons. And obviously, we don't know if they have a championship window this season, right? Because we'll see what happens in the play-in tournament and kind of the health the rest of the way. But even looking at next season, if you can add a piece that can really complement your big 3, I think that's really important. So if I'm the Lakers, I'm personally looking at right now, win now, and try to make this roster as good as you can, including throwing in the draft pick. And I know Bill disagrees with me.
He is so excited to jump in there.
I go back to 2018-19 when the Lakers were similarly floundering at the trade deadline, and they felt so much pressure to improve their roster that they traded Ivica Zubac for Mike Muscala, which was a disaster. Like just a bad trade made from a position of weakness, and that did not pan out whatsoever. I believe there was a draft pick involved in the Svi Mikhailuk for Reggie Bullock deal that also did not pan out. So I mean, ultimately, you end up trading assets. You're doubling down on a bad roster, and those were regrettable moves that end up hurting them. Also, in the sense that you have Ivica Zubac now really as a key cog for the Clippers. If you have a losing hand, don't keep betting. And I'm not saying that the Lakers necessarily have that losing hand, but they have to tread very carefully here. I'm not throwing in the first rounder for a guy who can come in and play 18 minutes. I mean, that has to be a guy who can be a piece of your core for as long as you have this window with LeBron James. You are not trading. You've already traded almost everything you have. You don't dig through your purse and find that last coin and bet it on black.
Some people do. Yes, they actually do.
And listen, there are hotlines for those people, and maybe that's what Rob Pelinka needs, a hotline.
I need the prompter. ESPN NBA insider Bobby Marks threw out a trade proposal today. Lakers and Knicks. He's got the Lakers getting Kemba Walker, Evan Fournier, and Alec Burks. The Knicks getting Westbrook, DeAndre Jordan, Wayne Ellington, and the Lakers' 2027 first-rounder, Jovan. That's a lot to take in. What do you think?
I would do this trade. I really think when you look at the market for getting out of Russell Westbrook's contract, you're not going to get much better than this. I mean, are you going to trade for John Wall and I think kind of get probably a similar level player to a Kemba Walker? I think Evan Fournier and Alec Burks would fit great with this team. I think Evan Fournier would be the best non-LeBron wing on this team, and Alec Burks would provide some scoring punch off the bench. And then you have Kemba Walker as a placeholder, but I think the Lakers don't really need another point guard. LeBron James is their point guard.
And he's
I
proven
think,
that he's still
and Kemba Walker is a good shooter, and that's where I think like there's more of a natural fit there. And obviously, I think Russ is the best player in that deal, but I think you are getting out of that contract, you're saving some money, and you're adding some much-needed depth on the perimeter and just kind of upgrading it. So in my opinion, I know it seems dire, right, that it's kind of come down to this.
Do your notes say what Kemba Walker's contract is?
I think he's got $9 million for 2 more years, I want to say.
He doesn't even need notes for that. It's in his brain.
I feel like I don't expect the Lakers to. I think it would be out of character for the Lakers to wave the white flag on Russell Westbrook at this point. Like, we all can see it. We know that it's been up and down, to say the least. But when they traded for Russell Westbrook, what we were told at the time by sources around the team and around the decision makers of that deal was they viewed Russell Westbrook as a guy you could count on to get 16 wins and not worry about like the 82. It was a trade for the playoffs. And so if that is the philosophy, then you have to trust what your initial instinct was and at least see it in the playoffs. I am skeptical, but I think, again, you traded for this guy for a reason. You had your philosophy of how it was going to look. You haven't gotten to see it enough. I wouldn't have made the trade in the first place, but you did. This is the lane you chose, and now you're gonna trade a first rounder and get rid of the guy that you got for the playoffs. I think you dance with the one who brung you.
To be clear, I don't think the Lakers would do this trade, but I personally would do it. That's what I'm saying.
We did say that you guys were going to be in the GM spot, so
I would do it.
You answered the
I don't
bell.
want to be the GM. That's a terrible job.
Okay, so let me just take it one step further. I'll start with you because you would do the deal. From a business logistics standpoint with the Knicks in town tomorrow, does it make it easier?
I think so. I mean, we just saw the Clippers and Blazers execute it.
Like, I mean, the age of Zoom. No.
We've seen sometimes teams that play each other end up making a trade a few days later. Like, I think that is a thing. Now, it's not the only way to make a trade. You don't have to be in person, obviously, but I do think it could help.
Bill, you get final thoughts here.
Like Lawrence Frank sees Joe Cronin, and it's like, hey, I have an idea. I mean, like, listen, that's taking cronyism and turning it into Croninism. I don't think so.
I don't know.
I don't think a great topic for the Forum Club.
The Forum Club, available wherever you get podcasts.
In
Apple
Cancun.
Podcasts,
Friday night, final thought.
Athletic Basketball Hour, a new regular feature.
So this is y'all's show, and I'm just here for it.